Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Galpern with the Center for Genetics and Society. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in person today, but I'm so glad to be part of this important conference. I have deep respect for Black Women for Wellness and the BWW Action Project, and for all of you attending today. For nearly 20 years, I've been working on issues related to new genetic and reproductive technologies. In particular, how health, rights, and justice are impacted, addressed, or ignored in this field from a reproductive justice perspective. And while my work focuses on topics such as egg retrieval, in vitro fertilization, surrogacy, and genetic testing of embryos, I'm also immersed in key issues related to reproductive oppression that have historically undermined Black women's health and rights and continue to do so today. Repressive actions such as coerced sterilization, abortion bans, criminalization of pregnant people, and family policing may seem distant from the idealized, high-tech, costly interventions of assisted reproduction. But these realms are related. They all take place in a system where the ability to control our reproductive lives and to form families, or not if that's what we decide, depend on which demographic groups we belong to, and then what conditions and freedoms we are deemed to deserve. The entire landscape of reproduction and family formation reflects oppressive beliefs that already exist in our society. Some people's lives are more valued than others. Some people's families are more valued than others. And some people's genes are more valued than others. And so some people are supported in their decisions to reproduce, including with the help of interventions, while others are deemed unfit to have children or to have more children and are denied the ability to make those reproductive decisions. As we well know, state control of reproduction particularly targets Black women and other marginalized communities and spans a range of policies that may seem contradictory. Abortion bans where women are forced to have children they did not decide to have, and sterilization or separation from children when women do want to have and raise children. However, because we understand that the goal of these efforts is to keep women disempowered, we recognize the policies as directly connected. We see deep disparities between the people most directly affected by state control of reproduction and those with privilege who can access privatized, high-cost fertility services to form their families. These inequities were illuminated immediately after the Dobbs decision, when there were calls to exempt in vitro fertilization from laws banning abortion. Rather than a unified fight for all women and pregnant people to have access to reproductive health care, including abortion. And even within a fertility industry designed primarily to further the reproductive choices of those with privilege, the lack of adequate regulation, research, and other safeguards contribute to significant risks to the health and rights of those involved, including prospective parents and children born from these procedures, as well as egg and sperm donors and surrogates. For example, there are virtually no studies on the long-term health outcomes of hormonal stimulation for egg donors. And a recent study showed that the prevalence of severe ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, a short-term adverse reaction, may be much higher than previous research had concluded. For fertility clinics and intermediary agencies, profit is the bottom line. That can be at the expense of women who make the reproduction through these technologies possible, egg donors and surrogates. And it means that clinical emphasis is often on efficiency rather than humanity, and cost effectiveness rather than safety. The lack of safeguards not only affects the health of those undergoing medical procedures, but also the security and well-being of children and families. The rights of LGBTQ parents have never been secure, with non-genetic parents at particular risk of having their parental rights taken away. Assisted reproductive technologies make new ways of forming families possible for LGBTQ parents, but new or reinstated restrictions on the use of assisted reproduction by LGBTQ individuals and couples, single people, and unmarried people could be implemented as part of the current legislative attacks on LGBTQ communities. The ways in which health and rights are undermined in the use of expensive high-tech interventions reflects a system where all women and marginalized peoples are deprioritized. And we know that when women overall are ignored, devalued, and disenfranchised, Black women are one of the groups that are most heavily impacted. I want to talk about how eugenics plays out in this picture. Eugenics is the belief that certain groups of people are fit to reproduce, and only people with certain traits are worthy of being born. Eugenic beliefs influence policy and practice regarding who is allowed, encouraged, and supported to have children, and who is discouraged, prevented, punished, and criminalized for having children. Eugenics has been implemented by state reproductive violence through coerced sterilization against numerous communities. In the 20th and 21st centuries, tens of thousands of involuntary sterilization were or have been carried out on women, people with disabilities, Black and Latinx people, Indigenous peoples, and young, poor, and immigrant people. Eugenic ideology has not only been carried out by the state, but has also influenced the development and use of assisted reproduction. This is clear in practices such as genetic testing of embryos to screen out those with genetic conditions, or to select for non-health-related traits, as well as valuing sperm and egg providers by race or educational attainment. We can also see it in technologies being researched and developed. For example, some scientists and others want to extend the possibilities of reproductive technologies to include, quote, designer babies, known as heritable genome editing. This would alter the genes of future generations and change humanity as we know it. It is banned in 70-plus countries and not permitted in the US, although proponents are working to change this. Heritable genome editing is a dangerous technology that poses serious health and safety risks and could exacerbate inequities and create new forms of discrimination. These actual and potential uses of reproductive genetic technologies all emphasize the goal of having a child without genetic conditions or disabilities, which reflects disability stigma and discrimination pervasive in our society. The market-driven eugenics of the genetic testing and assisted reproduction industries capitalizes on these biases by developing and marketing more and more tests to build their profit. An important part of recognizing the worth of all people is challenging the idea that having a child with a disability is unquestionably something to be avoided. Instead, we must value and affirm the lives and perspectives of people with disabilities. Sexism, racism, classism, heterosexism, and stigmatization of people with disabilities have long been embedded in scientific research, medical practice, and state and federal policies related to reproductive decision-making and family building. These oppressions have impacted what choices are available to women with regard to reproduction and to the rest of our lives. In the current era, where we face the impact of the Dobbs decision, unprecedented attacks on LGBTQ communities, surging white nationalism, and unchecked corporate profiteering, we are urgently called to look at connections between these public and private spheres of reproduction and their specific impacts on Black women, families, and communities. We can unite across movements to challenge state control of reproduction and to counter profit motivations in the privatized assisted reproduction industry. Together, we can work to simultaneously achieve reproductive justice, disability rights, and LGBTQ rights. Thank you.